In this lesson, we are going to explore plane sections of three-dimensional figures. So what is a plane section? Well, a plane section is a shape that you get when you cut straight into a three-dimensional figure. It's like the view you get of something when you cut inside it. What we're going to do is learn how to identify the shapes that are made, and what you're going to get are two-dimensional shapes when you make these cuts. So we're going to identify the shapes that are made by making parallel and perpendicular cuts into prisms and pyramids. As you can see here, on the left, I have a prism. And this is a rectangular prism. The bottom of it is a square, and the sides are rectangles. The sides are just a little bit taller than they are wide. So we have rectangles on the sides and squares for the bases. Now over here, I've got my pyramid. And this is a square pyramid where the base is square and the sides are triangles like all pyramids have. So what we're going to do is make cuts that are perpendicular and parallel with respect to the base. And let's start with the prism. So I'm going to show you what a perpendicular and a parallel cut would be. And again, we're working with respect to the base. So parallel to the base or perpendicular to the base. Here's an image showing where the cuts would be. So here's our prism, and we have a shrunken down version of it right here. If we made a cut that's parallel, you basically see this pink here, this would be where you would cut, and you're going to cut parallel to this base. Here's the perpendicular cut, right? The perpendicular cut goes at a 90-degree angle to the base. So there are going to be different shapes that are formed when we make these cuts. And let's take a look at what happens when we make a parallel or a perpendicular cut. So over here on the left, you have the parallel cut. And as you can see, what you get is this blue two-dimensional shape here. And actually, this shape is 100% exactly the same as the shape of the base. Since the base is a square, what you'll get if you were to turn this on its side and have it face you is a square, the same size and with the same dimensions as the base. So the parallel cut gives us the shape of the base, which is a square. Now the perpendicular cut is shown over here. And I'm just going to abbreviate this, perpendicular. Now when you make a perpendicular cut, you're going at a 90-degree angle to the base. And what you get is this yellowish green figure right here, and this is a two-dimensional figure. If you were to face this towards you, what you would get is a rectangle with the same dimensions, and it's exactly the same size as one of these faces. So it's now parallel to this face, which is why you get the same exact shape and size. Perpendicular to the base gives you a cut that is the same as one of the side faces of this prism. Now let's erase all these prisms, and we're going to take a look at the pyramid now. So here's the pyramid, and this orange represents where you would make the cut so that it's parallel to the base. When you make this cut, you're left with this square shape right inside. Now, because the pyramid doesn't have straight up and down edges, like the same way, like this would be a straight edge, this would be a straight edge, you can kind of see that, if you had a prism around this, you would have straight edges. But you don't have straight edges, so you don't get a shape that's exactly the same size as the base, but you get a shape that's exactly the same shape. So since it's a square base, if you were to take this pink shape and bring it towards you, you would get a square. So the two-dimensional cut or plane section that you get when you go parallel to this pyramid is a square. Now let's see what happens when you go perpendicular to the base. So here's the cut that's perpendicular to the base, and it's a little hard to tell, but basically this light blue is facing directly at you. So you're making the cut from the top of the pyramid, and you're going to slice into it straight down in this direction here. Now this will be perpendicular to the base, and as you can see, this dark blue lets you know the shape that's being formed. When you make that perpendicular cut, what you get is a triangle that's similar to the face, these edges here, this face that is directly in front of the pyramid. So when you go perpendicular to the base, you get a triangle. When you went parallel to the base, as you saw earlier, you got the square. So the general thing to remember here is when you make a cut that is parallel to the base, you're going to get a shape that is similar to the two-dimensional shape that makes up the base of the three-dimensional shape. So with the prism, right, we got a shape of a square when we cut parallel. And again, since this was a square pyramid, we got another square when we cut parallel to this figure as well. Now, what happens when you go perpendicular, right? Perpendicular gives you a cut that is similar to one of the faces that is going upright, right? That is then in line with that cut that you're making. So do your best to try and visualize. If you had that shape right in front of you and you cut into it in a certain way, what do you think the two-dimensional shape formed would be? You just have to try and visualize as best as you can. And when in doubt, remember, cutting parallel to the base will give you a two-dimensional shape that is similar to the base. Cutting perpendicular to the base will give you a two-dimensional shape that is similar to one of the faces. In this lesson, you've learned about plane sections of prisms and pyramids. Thanks for watching.